Let's see if we can make a deal with this Arnold Schwarzenegger film. Let's get into it. Back on my channel, I hope you're all doing well out there. And today we're going to head back to 1986 for another Arnold Schwarzenegger film. But before we get into it, like, comment, and subscribe. Join me here. I would appreciate that. Today we're going to talk about 1986's Raw Deal. This was a Dino De Laurentiis production. At the time, his company needed a quick infusion of cash. He was hoping to make Total Recall. Dino De Laurentiis owned the rights to Total Recall at the time. And Arnold Schwarzenegger wanted to star in that film, but Dino didn't think Arnold was right for the film. He had already hired Patrick Swayze at that time in that iteration of the project. And Arnold had one more picture left on a contract he had with Dino De Laurentiis' company, and he wanted out. So they agreed for Arnold to do this film instead, and Dino De Laurentiis was hoping this was going to be a hit to give his company some quick cash to get the Total Recall project off the ground. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. This film came out June 6th of 1986. It's rated R, had a budget of $8.5 million. It's an hour and 41 minutes long, and upon release, it made 16.2, so it wasn't the hit Dino De Laurentiis was hoping it was going to be. John Irvin directed this film. He was a British director at the time, and Arnold Schwarzenegger plays Mark in this film. He's an ex-FBI agent that's a small-town sheriff at this point. He got kicked out of the FBI for a bust that went bad, and now he's negated to being the small-town sheriff. Robert Davi plays Max Keller. He is an enforcer for the mob in Chicago. And Darren McGavin, yes, the Darren McGavin that played the father in The Christmas Story, plays Harry Shannon, who is a chief with the FBI, and reaches out to Mark for help because in the beginning of the film, we see Harry's son, who's in protective custody because he's a witness to crimes committed by the mob, gets taken out by these hitmen. And one of the hitmen, if you're a horror fan, is played by George P. Wilbur, who played Michael Myers in Halloween 4 and Halloween 6. You see him briefly in the beginning of the film. You never see him again. As a matter of fact, you don't see any of the hitmen from the beginning of the film for the rest of the film, actually. They're just in this being a sequence in this film. So Harry reaches out to Mark and asks him to help him. He's going to privately finance Mark to get in bed with the mob and take them out to take revenge for his son's death. And Mark agrees because he's hoping this is his way back into the FBI because he was taken out of the FBI by what we come to find out is a corrupt DA. And that's why he is in this small town being sheriff because of this. He got screwed over. He got a raw deal and now he wants back in. So he goes deep undercover, being privately financed by Harry, and he infiltrates the mob and takes them all out, and that is pretty much Raw Deal. Let's start with the positives here. Of course, we got to start with Arnold. Arnold is as charismatic as ever in this role. Even though it's a contractual obligation film to get out of a contract with Dino De Laurentiis, he gives it his all. He's really good here. Darren McGavin is great as his chief. That's a friend of his, and he's really good here. Robert Davi's great as this enforcer. He plays a terrific scumbag, as Robert Davi always has throughout his career. He's always great when he's on screen. The other actors in the film do fine. There's no complaints there. There's some really good action scenes. Is this one of Arnold's best films? No. And you could tell why this is a little bit of a blip on Arnold's filmography. He was coming off of Commando in 85, and then in 87 he had Predator and The Running Man, which are bigger hits than this film. But it's still a good, solid action film. I think the direction's okay by Irvin. It's nothing special. I think Red Heat's way more better directed. I think obviously Predator's way better directed. He does okay here. It's a workman-like job. It's fine. The action scenes are competently shot. You could tell pretty much what's going on. I wouldn't consider this one of Arnold's best films, but it's still an enjoyable watch for sure. Other than that, I really don't have many complaints, but the failure of this film is what caused De Laurentiis to sell the rights to Total Recall to Colerico, and they ended up making it 90 with Paul Verhoeven and Schwarzenegger. So this was pretty much the end of De Laurentiis' company at the time. This just wasn't the hit that he wanted it to be, and he thought it would be because Arnold's star was rising, because Commando was a nice size hit in 85, and Arnold had already had a bunch of movies lined up to do, obviously The Running Man coming out in 87 and Predator, but it just didn't work out for whatever reason. It's still a solid action film with some really good performances and some cool action. But at the end of the day, it's not groundbreaking. It's not what Arnold's known for. I mean, Arnold had obviously in his career, way bigger titles. The Terminator, Commando. The Running Man is considered a cult classic now. Predator. Terminator 2, True Lies, Kindergarten Cop's even bigger than this film. I think Red Heat's a better film than this film, and Red Heat's considered a little blip on Arnold's filmography, even though I think it's a really solid buddy cop film. But at the end of the day, it's an enjoyable watch. I sat down. It's the first time I've seen this film in probably 20 years. It was requested to review, and I was happy to do it because we're kind of going through a little bit of an Arnold review series here. I'm going to do Eraser next week along with Predator 2. And I enjoyed myself. It's just not the greatest thing. I mean, there's some good acting. There's some good action scenes. But overall, I would give this film a 7.5 out of 10. It's a nice, solid little action film that Arnold did to get out of a contract. And he gives it his all. So, yeah, 7.5 out of 10 for Raw Deal. Have you ever seen this film? Leave a comment down below. Let me know what your thoughts are on this one. Hit the thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button. Share it. It's really great. Would appreciate that. I'll be back next week with a review for Eraser, Predator 2. But until then, I hope you all have a great weekend, and bye.